If you ever tried to manage your money, chances are you failed a lot. But the truth is, it's not your fault. You just didn't have the right strategy and tools. The thing that makes the biggest difference is having a money map. And it doesn't matter if you earn $65K or $300K a year. Today, I wanted to share the easiest way to manage your money in just 5 simple steps. And if you want to use the same money map template that I created, you can get it for free in the description below. All right, so once you open up that money map template, this is kind of what you see. It's split into 5 separate sections, and going from left to right, you're going to be filling it out. And you're gonna notice, like, as you do it, some cells are gonna change colors, and at the end of it, you're gonna get your own personalized money map score to indicate how well you're doing financially. And I'm gonna go into all of that in a bit. But again, if you wanna follow along with me, you can grab this template for free using the link down below. All right, so step 1, the goal of the money map is to understand your 4 key numbers. I like to call it the 4 C's. These are the only 4 numbers that you really need to know and focus on at this stage. And the reason the 4 C's are so helpful, because it kind of forces you to treat your personal finances like a business. Because the main objective of every business is to make a profit. But it's impossible to do that if you don't know where your money is coming from or where it's going to. It's basically like trying to throw a dart in the dark. So the first key number you need to know is called your capital. This is your monthly net income, which is the amount of money that you bring home each month after taxes, basically your take-home pay. For example, if you have a full-time job earning $4,000 a month, this is where you would add in over here $4,000. If you have more than one income stream, like you have multiple jobs, you earn dividends, you have pension, Social Security, or you have a side hustle, this is also where you want to put it. In this case, I'm going to say side hustle. I earn $500 a month, and in dividends, let's just say $200. Now, 2 things to keep in mind is that if you have a full-time job, this part is pretty easy to fill out. But if you're a freelancer or you're a contractor, you need to account for taxes that you're going to have to pay alongside your income. So just remember to exclude that when filling out the first step. Also, if your income varies a lot month to month, then you can just take the average of the last 3 months and fill that in over here. All right, so once you're done with filling out step 1, capital, let's move on to the next step, the 2 C's, which stands for core and choice. And it's the second step that a lot of people often overlook, but it is by far the most important part to managing your money effectively. Like, I have friends who are earning well over 6 figures, like 100K, 200K, 300K per year, and they are still broke because they do this part incorrectly. All right, so just based on your monthly take-home pay, in this scenario, it's $4,700 in total. You now need to figure out how much of this amount of money flows into your core and your choice buckets. Think of your core bucket as your core needs, right? These are the things that you need to spend money on in order to survive. So this includes things like your housing expenses, your groceries, your transportations, utilities, healthcare, any debt payments. I've already added a bunch of the more common core needs for you in this template, so it's easier for you to follow along. But if you ever get confused on whether something is considered a core need or not, a helpful test that I created is to just ask yourself, right? If you lost your job tomorrow, are you obligated to still pay for that thing? If you say yes, then that is considered a core need. One of the easiest ways to figure out what the numbers are for you in this section is to log into your bank accounts, your credit cards, go through your monthly statements and export that into a CSV file. Make sure you don't export it as a PDF statement because it's a lot harder to analyze then. Now just open up your CSV file and go through the transactions and start adding up your core needs, and then you want to fill them into the money map. So let's say I pay $2,000 for rent, $200 for groceries, $100 for utilities, $300 for transportation, $50 for basic clothing, and so on and so forth. And when filling this out, you can be as detailed as you want here. In this case, I bundled like water, electricity, and heat and internet bill as utilities, but you can break them up separately if you want to. If you have to add more core needs, no worries, just go down over here, just name it something, and then you can select the core label, and then you put in the amount. And as you're filling out your core needs, you're going to see that it's going to be added up over here in this 3rd section, as well as a cell changing color as green or red. I'm not going to get into this right now because I don't want to overwhelm you, but this is something we'll cover a little bit later. All right, so moving on, once you have your core needs filled out, the next C to focus on is called choice. The choice bucket is basically the opposite of your core needs, and it contains anything you choose to spend money on. Like, these are non-essentials, right? These are things that are making your life more comfortable and better and more enjoyable, such as going to the movies or eating out and buying gifts or subscribing to Amazon Prime. And again, I've already added some of the more common choice categories in this template to make this whole process a lot easier. So let's just fill it out. Dining out, let's just say I spent $200, entertainment, $10, travel and vacation, $0, electronics, gadgets, $100, and so on and so forth. Now, two things to keep in mind. Sometimes there are gray areas, basically things that can fall into either core or choice buckets. For example, I think we can all agree that having a phone nowadays is a core need, but there is a big difference between having a regular base model iPhone versus having an iPhone Pro Max, or a difference between buying ground beef at a grocery store versus buying A5 Japanese Wagyu steak. For these cases, anything that's considered an upgrade from the base model or the minimum you need to survive is considered a choice. So for example, if the base model iPhone costs $700, but you decide to get the iPhone Pro Max for $1,200, then you would just label $700 as core, and then the extra $500 is labeled as choice. The second thing to keep in mind is don't use your entire take-home pay or your net income and feel like you have to spend all that money into these two buckets. One of the main points of the money map system is we want to have money left over because any leftover money automatically flows into the next key number, compound. All right, so after you filled out step 2, core and choice, let's move on to step 3, results. So in the results, you're going to see your core needs and your choice buckets automatically add up all the things you put there, and anything that is left over from your net income automatically flows into this new category called compound. I'll explain what the compound bucket is a bit later, but first, in the results section, you'll notice that the breakdown column over here, you're going to see the colors changing depending on how much money you dedicated to core or to choice. The money map template is modeled off of the 60-20-20 budget rule, which states that 60% of your net income should go towards your core needs, and then 20% should go towards your choice bucket. Meaning, if this turns green, right, it means that you are good. You're in line with your budget based on your net income. If it turns red like this, then that means that you're spending too much money. So as you're filling out your money map, let's just say we're starting over with our choice bucket. And let's just say this is $800, and then you can see that this red starts popping up. In this case, then you know that you are overspending, and you can go back to your choice buckets and see where you can cut your expenses. One really cool feature is you can actually sort from highest to lowest expenses. You just click on that and then sort Z to A. And then you can see very easily, it's an easier way for you to see what you should be cutting out on, what are you spending a lot of money on that you might not notice otherwise. For example, is there any expense here that you can cut out, or are there any cheaper alternatives to reduce your spending for that category? But if you're filling it out and it turns green, like in this case, right, that means that you can spend more money if you want in that bucket, or you can just let all that extra money flow to the single most important step, which is the compound bucket. Your compound bucket is essentially your wealth building bucket, because any money that automatically flows into here is automatically dedicated to you, your future version, your growth, right? Whether that's financially, career related, or even personally. This is the money you're going to use to build an emergency fund for peace of mind, or the money to invest in the stock market to build wealth, or to build an education fund so you can learn more skills and increase your income. So bringing it back to the 60-20-20 budget rule, it states that the compound bucket should be at least 20% of your net income. If this turns red over here, that means you're not dedicating enough money for your growth. All right, so moving on. So in the results section right now, I have $1,000 dedicated for the compound bucket. Now I'll move on to step 4, labeled compound over here. And this is when I have to strategically assign each dollar a different role. I'm going to put $500 in my emergency fund, $200 in my education fund, and then $300 in my investments. The total number over here should equal your compound number over here. If it goes over, it's going to turn red, and that means that you're spending more than you actually have dedicated to that. Having this as a 4th step is really helpful because it makes sure that you assign every single dollar a job. And if you're not sure which order you should assign your money towards your compound or to your growth, I have a video that explains step by step what you should be doing with your money once you get paid. I'll also link it in the description down below. The point is, any money that's left over isn't just about putting money away, right? It's about strategically assigning each dollar a role so that it can compound and give you exponential returns over time. All right, so once you're done with step 4, that brings us to step 5, which is reflect. And this step is really helpful because sometimes we can just get into the weeds of our finances so much that we just forget the bigger picture. And having this money map score to indicate how well you're doing financially is really powerful. Like sometimes it might feel impossible to fit perfectly into this 60-20-20 budget. So for example, I celebrate Christmas, right? Which means I gotta buy presents for people in December. And there's a really good chance that I'm going to overspend during that month. And this is going to turn red in this choice bucket. But before you go panic mode, I want you to check your money map score, because that score over here takes everything into consideration. It basically indicates how well you're managing your money based on this scale. If you get a 3, that means your money is going great. If you get a 0, then that needs improvement. And again, if you want to use this template, I'm going to leave a link down below. It's completely free. Now, if you do get a low money map score here, it indicates that you need to reflect on your spending. So you want to start asking yourself some questions like, where did you overspend? What went wrong? If your core bucket is too high or your choice bucket is too high, can you find cheaper alternatives? Can you, like, for example, refinance your mortgage, or can you negotiate your rent? Or can you shop at Lidl instead of Whole Foods? Or if you start noticing a pattern every single month where you get a really, really low score and you've been trying nonstop to cut your expenses and it seems like nothing is working, then it might mean that it's time to look at your first C, which is capital. Can you increase your income, whether that is negotiating an increased salary, or can you job hop? Another thing worth thinking about is, can you think of other income sources, right? There are side hustles that you can do, or you can just optimize your existing money a bit better, right? Maybe you have your savings in a regular bank account. Can you move it into a high yield savings account and start getting some income that way? The point is, step 5 forces you to take a step back and review your money map to see what you can do to improve your personal finances. And again, if you want this template for free, it's in the description down below. Give it a try and then come back and let me know how it goes.